What I'm going to show you in this video will completely change your mind on your current belief that Boyd's arrival was in any way a good thing for the people living in this town, because there are many hints given to us by the writers of this story that the only reason Boyd even made it into the town in the first place is specifically because the entity that's in control of the monsters wanted him to be there. And that's why I want you to listen very closely to what I'm about to show you.
You saved this town, Boyd. Created order from chaos. Look, I can't even imagine what it must be like for you. The edges are starting to fray. People are scared. They need you to hold this place together.
What we see here with Father Cartry is one of the most long-running themes in the background of this story, and that is the idea that the people of the town are reaching a sort of tipping point, that they're now approaching a point where they cannot handle any more suffering. And despite the fact that Father Cartry says this statement all the way back in Season 1, this concept is reiterated once again by Jim Matthews years later, all the way in Season 3, when Jim Matthews tells Boyd that the situation in the town is actually getting worse rather than getting better. And these statements by Father Cartry and Jim Matthews is a good showcase of what I want you to keep in mind about what Boyd's leadership and his arrival into the town has actually accomplished, and the type of environment that his presence has really created in this town. And this is something that's actually addressed by the real Father Cartry himself in that same conversation that we were talking about earlier.
You were the one who found the talismans. Before you got here, I was burying more people in a week than you'd seen die in the last 2 years. You saved this town, Boyd.
This scene here is a good representation of the exact point that I'm trying to make about Boyd's impact in the town. Father Cartry specifically says that before Boyd found the talismans, he would see more people dying in a week than they have seen dying in the past 2 years after Boyd found the talismans. And this line in particular gives us a very clear picture of how Boyd's presence has completely changed everything for the people in the town. But what so many people miss is that despite everything that Boyd has done to make the town as successful and as livable as it is right now, it is still portrayed by the writers of the story that the entity in control of the monsters is stronger now than he has ever been. And this is something we know for a fact, because it's only now in the current story that the entity has been able to do these absolutely insane things, like being able to change the seasons of the town by making it winter, dragging in a bus that was completely full of people, and he was even able to bring one of his demons back to life. And these are all things that we as the viewers are clearly supposed to perceive as having had never happened in the history of the town, or at the very least, these things have never happened in the last 40 or so years after Victor's massacre. And this can only lead us to one possible conclusion, that there is a direct correlation to Boyd's arrival into the town and why the entity in control of the monsters has experienced this absolutely incredible boost in power and the level of influence that he possesses over the town itself. And this one fact directly brings us back to the original question: what is Boyd's actual role in the town? Because knowing this in particular is crucial to understanding why we know with 100% certainty that he is the one responsible for the entity's continuously increasing dominance over the people of the town.
This place will not break us. What happened today was a setback. We can still win. It's possible to fight back.
And this here is one of the biggest signs that make it crystal clear for us as the viewers that Boyd's presence in the town is absolutely necessary in order for the people to even have the smallest appearance of a functioning society. Because Boyd's role and the purpose he serves in the town is something repeatedly demonstrated throughout the story, from the very first season all the way to whatever the last one will end up being. Boyd is the one that is always there to tell the people of the town that we haven't lost, that we haven't tried all our possible moves yet. Basically, what we see here is that Boyd is the one that is always there to tell the people of the town that they can still win the game. In these repeated scenes where he reiterates time and time again that there's still more that we can try to do is exactly what we need to understand what the point of his character actually is in the game. Because what we've been seeing here is just conclusive proof of what we should have known from the very beginning, that Boyd's arrival was clearly planned for and organized by a very powerful being who needed him to be in the town. Otherwise, its plans to truly destroy the people of the town could never come to fruition. And of course, I am talking about the entity in control of the monsters himself. And this next scene matters so much in how we know that this is undeniably true.
Boy, destroying that box isn't going to end their suffering. People in this town will suffer. We're all going to die, screaming.
This scene right here with fake Abby gives us huge hints as to the very specific reason that Boyd was brought into the town. Because I want you to pay very close attention to what fake Abby says in this moment. Fake Abby tells Boyd that if Boyd proceeds with his plan to smash the music box, the people of this town will suffer in ways that we cannot even imagine. And this is unsurprisingly one of many different hints that is given to us throughout the story of a very particular concept that has been repeatedly hinted to us multiple times again and again by the writers. And it's clearly something that will obviously play a very significant role in the future of this story. And that is the very subtle plotline that it isn't the cicadas that can trap people in the dungeon, or the music box that kills people in their dreams, or the kimono demon that can seemingly resurrect demons at will, or even the nightwalkers that ruthlessly torture people for the fun of it, but that it is actually Boyd himself specifically that is the main reason for the entity that's in control of the monsters' continued success in destroying the people of this town. Because what we see here with fake Abby is simply just even more proof that Boyd was summoned into the town by the same being that's in control of the monsters, which is why the next scene that I'm about to show you matters so much in understanding what's really going on in this town.
It's not your fear that feeds the forest, Boyd. Hope is what sent you out into the woods that day, made you leave me when I needed you the most. It knows you won't listen. It wants you to fight. Hope is what makes you willing to suffer.
If we assume fake Abby is acting against the entity in control of the monsters, it changes everything that we thought we knew, because his specific claim that hope is what feeds the forest explains why we regularly see the entity manipulating Boyd into actions that would lead him into not only a position of leadership in the town, but also leading him into positions that result in a greater amount of hope existing in the town than what was there before. For example, the entity appears as the dog to lead Boyd out into the forest, knowing that doing so would lead the real Abby into losing her mind and going postal, which would then force Boyd into killing her. And it's also very important to remember that this happens on the same exact day that Boyd brought the talismans back to the town. And this is clearly not a coincidence. The entity in control of the monsters organized both of these events to happen at the same time because it would guarantee that the townspeople would view Boyd as being the only person capable of protecting them. He wanted Boyd specifically to have the #1 position of influence in the town, and the reason why could not be any more clear. Because even after being forced to watch as Kenny's mom was being tortured to death, or watching the resurrection of a demon born from his own daughter-in-law that he himself killed, or even after shooting his own wife in the back, Boyd still refuses to accept defeat. Because no matter how hopeless the situation actually is, Boyd will still be there to tell the people of the town that they can still win, even when he knows that it is completely impossible. And that's literally the entire point. The entity cannot kill Boyd because there is no one else in the entire game, and possibly even in the history of the town from its conception, that has ever followed their assigned role more perfectly than Boyd. Like, the entity knows that as long as Boyd is alive, there will always be a fool living in the town just constantly giving the townspeople hope that they can actually win regardless of what is actually happening in the town, and he will just keep doing that over and over and over again. And therefore, it's because of this that just by being alive, Boyd's existence literally guarantees that he, the entity, will always be happily fed, because that is undeniably the entire reason why the entity in control of the monsters brought him into the town in the first place. Like, people see Boyd repeatedly hiding information that would save the lives of the people in the town and cannot see that it is by design. Like how he hid the information of what Martin told him, which resulted in Dale going into the tree, and as expected, that's how they got him. And I want you to understand that this is by design. The entity knows that Boyd is not going to share information that might actually help them, but instead is just going to keep these people in this horrific cycle of giving them a false hope, when in reality they are already doomed. There's literally a 99% chance that they're all going to die, because that's exactly what's happened in every single cycle. What we keep seeing with Boyd is just more and more evidence that he was clearly chosen to be the leader of the town because of his very specific traits. And this is just one of the many signs in this story that the manipulation by the entity in control of the monsters is significantly worse than anything we could have possibly imagined. And we've barely even touched all of the evidence showing that this is clearly the case. So watch this video about Victor's dad next to understand his incredibly deep connection to the entity in control of the monsters.